Hi everyone, welcome back to Area of the Star Wars Story, and today we're going to be talking about the third episode of Skeleton Crew, so let's go and jump right into it. First off, we start the episode by seeing that all the parents are freaking out. They can't find their kids, they're waiting for the safety droids to report in, and they're at Fern's home. And we find out that Fern's mom was as rebellious as she was, and we see that because Fern's mom is like, I would run off all the time, they always dragged me back. And she's like, I'm sure they'll find the kids soon. I'm sure they'll be reporting in soon. And then almost on time, and we see that Wim's dad is zoned out, thinking about everything that's happened, which I understand completely. And so we see that the safety droid enters and explains that they're past the barrier, they can't send a message, they can't do anything, and all the parents are outraged. I completely understand, I would be there too. But then we go on to see that they've escaped, and we see that Wim is calling Jod a Jedi, and he's like, yes, I am. But we later go on to see in the episode that he says, I was just saying that. Now, I do think he's a Force user, because we see him use the Force multiple times in that episode. But, we see that he definitely, we see that whenever Wim asked, he lied. He was like, I was just saying that. And we see that. And then we also go on to see that he is the captain, because we see them yelling out that the captain's escaped. Look for him everywhere. Which I was super excited about, because last episode in the first one, I was definitely like, oh yeah, that's him. And it is him, which I was super excited about. We see that whenever he goes back to get SM-33, and something else that I really like that they threw in there is they threw in a little battle droid in, the little droid area where they keep all them after they shut them off. We see they threw in a little battle droid in there, and he's like, did we win? And then he, falls apart. And so I thought that was really cool. We see that they escape, they jump into hyperspace. And we see that KB, first off, SM-33 is not trusting of him at all, which I completely agree with. I wouldn't trust him either. And then we go on to see that night, after he puts the kids to bed, that KB doesn't trust him either. Completely understand. As I said, I wouldn't trust him either. We see that they land where he meets his friend Kim, who's the owl-looking thing. I'm like, okay, first off, because Kim calls him Crimson Jack. How'd you get that name? Because we know that, I don't know how to pronounce the captain's name, so I'm not going to even try. So we know that he goes by that one. He goes by Crimson Jack, and he also goes by Jod Nawan. How many names do you have? And I would like an explanation of how you got every single one. Because I know that you would, use a different name if you were trying to cover your tracks of something. And so we see that whenever he goes back, he explains that he left things in wrong standing with Kim. That's what Jod says. That he left things in wrong standing with her. And so I'm really curious on what that wrong standing was, and I'm hoping that we get to find out during this. And she goes on to explain that the kids' planet was an Old Republic planet that was purposely hidden away. All of them were destroyed. All of them were destroyed except for one, at Atten, which now has only gone on to live in fairy tales. So we see that all the planets except for at Atten were destroyed, and all the coordinates for them are gone. No one knows how to get there. No one knows anything about it. All they know is that it's a myth. That's what everyone thinks, is that it's a myth. We know that it's true, but everyone else thinks that it's a myth. And we see that Kim is like, even the stories, they explain that they were probably just myths. She's like, but I never stopped believing. And then she goes on and she ends up helping the kids. She's like, yeah, I can help you. And so she's taking all the stuff, she's grilling them on trying to get information about their planet. They explain that the barrier, you can see it at night, is this glowing red atmospheric, and she's like, atmospheric gas. Okay, that helps a lot. She's like, that's probably why it's been hidden for so long. And then as we see that Fern's like, how is it going to help anything? She gets up and turns to leave. And we see that Kim sees the patch on her bag that we see from episode 1 that Fern was given by her mom for getting top of her class again. And so we see that Fern grabs it and kind of drags Fern with it. Not on purpose, but I think she's just trying to get the stuff. So we see that she gets it and she puts it in. She's like, this is an Old Republic symbol. This helps a lot. And so whenever they're going over all these different planets, she's like, well, we learned about Coruscant. We learned about Coruscant Alderaan back on there. And Kim's like, Alderaan? You guys must have clearly missed the war. And Wim's like, what war? And then Neil is like, well, do you think the treasure could have something to do with the Great Help? And she's like, the Great Help? Like, all these things are adding up, and it's definitely helping her figure out where the planet is. But yeah, we see that they have no understanding of what the war is, of what happened with the Republic at all. We see they have no understanding of that. And something else that I noticed from the episode, and a lot of people did too, most likely, is that whenever Jod walks back in after Wim has put all the credits on the table after they get done eating, we see that the minute he walks back in, he covers all the credits by the bowl, because he knows that they got him in trouble last time someone saw them. He doesn't want to do it again. And so that was pretty cool to see. But yeah, and then we see that whenever Jod was coming up to the thing, we see that Kim thinks the kids are kidnapped, because as Jod was coming up to the door to knock on it and try to get her attention so he could come in, we see that she thinks the kids are kidnapped, and calls the, because we know that Jod has a bounty on his head, and we see that she calls the, New Instated Republic's police, and so I'm excited to see, like, where that goes, and they explain later on in the episode they couldn't shoot down the ship. It was too dangerous with the kids being inside. It wasn't safe. Because we see that the kids jumped into hyperspace at the end of that episode. But yeah, and Jod figures out that she was stalling, because she was stalling trying to keep them there, and so we see that he figures out that she was stalling, trying to make sure they stayed, and then we see that they get out, and they run. We see that KB grabs the stuff, and then she goes back to check, and we see that KB goes back to check on Kim, because we see that Jod pushed her into a stack of data pads, and so, but she goes back and she's like, I don't trust him, like, what should I do? And so she explains that if she needs any help, to call Kim, like, Kim's explaining that if KB needs any help, to call her, and to make sure that she's getting the truth from him. Don't just trust everything he says. And she's like, okay, got it. And she's like, will you be okay? And she's like, yeah. And now KB's asking, she's like, are you gonna be okay? And Kim's like, yeah, I'll be okay. Why don't you guys get going? And at first we see that Kim was like surprised that KB was going willingly with him. And we see that KB's like, well, he's gotten us this far, which he has. And then we see that once they get to the ship, they want an explanation. They're like, well, are you really a Jedi? And he's like, no, I just said that. And then they want an explanation on why he has so many different names. We see that he tries to form a part, like, once he'll get them home, and he explains that he's lost, he's alone, just like them. And then he explains that I'll get you home, maybe get maybe get some credits from it, and then we'll form a partnership. And they agree that they aren't going to do a partnership. He'll work with them. He'll be, like, they'll be his employer. And he agrees to that because he just wants to get them on the ship. I have a feeling that's going to turn around pretty fast. Because I feel like he was just saying that to get them on the ship. We saw that even SM-33 was standing there like, we want the truth, which I thought was really funny. And something else I didn't notice until this episode was I never noticed that SM-33 walks on a peg leg, which I think is really cool. It definitely fits into the really pirate standard, which I think is really cool. And I thought that was awesome to see. But yeah, we definitely see it. The kids don't trust him. I completely understand why. I look forward to next week's episode, but that's pretty much all I have to talk about today for today's Skeleton Crew episode. I give this episode a 8 out of 10. I'm looking forward to next week. Let me know what you guys thought of it. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and as always, God bless. Bye, guys.